configuration?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. And launch director entity?
Yes, sir.
We still do have 4 open constraints that are all paper at this time that are being worked by our engineering folks in the back of the room to get those off the constraints list.
Okay, so no worries, right?
No worries.
Thank you.
OTC, PLT, MPS helium Rankin 6 complete.
Copy that. Thank you.
OTC, PD.
Ready, PD.
Like a kickoff for 1072.
You've got to go on 1072. FCP.
FCP copies. Copy and work.
And NTDSP.
Go ahead.
Leslie, just to let you know, I did just talk to CMQC. All 4 of the constraints that are currently shown on the constraints list are with CMQC for closure. They're doing a final review, and I expect them to come off the constraints list momentarily.
Great, thank you.
All personnel discontinue all non-mandatory LDV traffic for the remainder of the count.
NTD Houston flight on 212.
Go ahead, flight.
VFS pre-flight uplink load is complete.
Copy, thank you. CVFS, you copy 1051?
VFS copies.
And for all personnel, we're going to hold at 9 in about 50 seconds or so.
And NTDSP is with you, sir.
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were looking for me.
No, sir.
This is shuttle launch control, T-minus 9 minutes, 23 seconds and counting. We're preparing now to enter the final built-in hold on the countdown. This is approximately a 45-minute built-in hold.
Pete and the folks are working on it momentarily, and CMQC is aware it's on its way to them.
Going into the hold now in 4, 3, 2, 1. T-minus 9 minutes of holding for 41 minutes and 10 seconds.
Duration of our hold will be 41 minutes and 13 seconds based on our window open time.
Right now we're going to go out to Mission Control in Houston. Rob Navius is our flight commentator for STS-135, and we'll go now to Rob to tell us what the status is of Mission Control in Houston and the readiness for launch today.
Thanks, George, and good day, everyone. This is Mission Control Houston at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Here in the Space Shuttle Flight Control Room, flight controllers belonging to the Ascent team have been on console since 4:30 this morning, monitoring Atlantis' systems in preparation for its final flight into space and the first step in the final mission in Space Shuttle program history. 30 years and 3 months ago, it was Columbia on Launch Pad 39A awaiting liftoff on the first shuttle mission. The Ascent team that day was led by Flight Director Neil Hutchinson, whose call sign was Silver Flight. He was assisted that day by a young astronaut named Dan Brandenstein, who served as the spacecraft communicator, or Capcom. Brandenstein would later fly in space 4 times, 3 times as a shuttle commander. Today, weather permitting, Atlantis will display its power and spectacle one last time under the direction of Flight Director Richard Jones, whose call sign is Sigma Flight. Jones will be assisted by Capcom Barry Wilmore, who will be talking directly to the crew during Atlantis' 8.5-minute ride to orbit. Wilmore is joined on console by astronaut Lee Archambault, who is monitoring weather conditions at the Kennedy Space Center. Archambault is in direct contact with Deputy Chief Astronaut Rick Sturco, who is flying the shuttle training aircraft around the vicinity of the shuttle landing strip at the Cape. Sturco is assessing the weather in the event Atlantis has to perform a return to launch site abort. Jones has already polled his team for a go for launch from a systems perspective, as has the International Space Station Flight Control team, led today by Flight Director Emily Nelson. At the time of Atlantis' launch, the International Space Station will be flying about 235 statute miles over the Pacific, east of Christchurch, New Zealand. Atlantis' launch is timed to match the moment when the Earth's rotation carries Launch Pad 39A into the corridor of the station's orbit. Shuttle flight controllers here in Houston are watching weather conditions at the overseas abort sites in Spain and France, which would be used in the event of an engine failure early in Atlantis' climb to orbit. Zaragoza, Spain is the prime transatlantic abort site today for Atlantis and its crew. The weather there is pristine. At launch, Atlantis will be sent aloft on the collective power of its 3 liquid fuel main engines and its twin solid rocket boosters, combining for a total of 7 million pounds of thrust. 30 seconds into the flight following its roll maneuver, the computers will throttle the main engines down to 72% of rated performance, designed to lessen aerodynamic forces on the shuttle's fuel tank and the orbiter's aero surfaces. The engines will throttle back up to 104% of capability 20 seconds later.
Go ahead, launch director.
Shortly after solid rocket booster separation, the orbital maneuvering system engines will ignite for 1 minute 23 seconds, providing an assist for the shuttle as it heads uphill. And a little less than 6 minutes into the flight, the onboard computers will command the main engines to swivel, allowing Atlantis to roll to a heads-up position above its fuel tank. That maneuver allows Atlantis to gain more favorable communications with the tracking and data relay satellite system. 8.5 minutes after launch, the main engines will be commanded to shut off, and the shuttle will separate from its fuel tank. Atlantis will settle into an elliptical orbit around 135 statute miles above the Earth at apogee, which will be refined to a higher elliptical orbit above the Earth about 37 minutes into the flight through a firing of the shuttle's orbital maneuvering system engines. Additional rendezvous maneuvers will be executed over the course of the next 2 days, bringing Atlantis to its final docking with the International Space Station on Sunday morning. Seconds after discarding the external fuel tank, Commander Chris Ferguson will execute a maneuver to place Atlantis in the correct orientation so that mission specialist Sandy Magnus can use digital cameras to capture high-resolution imagery of the tank as it drifts away. Because there are no crew members on the middeck for this launch, there will be no time for handheld video captured of the tank as it separates, only digital photos. Atlantis' 4 crew members will go to work shortly after the shuttle's payload bay doors are open, activating systems, unstowing gear, and preparing for their first 8-hour sleep period in orbit, which will begin around 7 p.m. Central Time. The sense of history, the legacy of what has occurred here over 3 decades, is palpable here in the shuttle flight control room as Jones and the Ascent team stand by to take over control of the last journey of a space shuttle at solid rocket booster ignition. At T-minus 9 minutes in holding and with history in the offing, this is Mission Control Houston.
Houston flight NTD on 212.
NTD Houston flight on 212, go ahead.
Okay. Any updates to our launch window and or lock stream back hold times today?
No updates.
All right. Very good. Let's see. OTC, TBC, PTC, LPS, MILA, STM, Safety, SPE, LRD, SRO, CDR, and CGLS. We have our final launch window has been selected, and we are going with our preferred time, and that does move our launch window T0 time to 15:26:46 GMT, and that window will close at the same 15:31:19 GMT with a window length of 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Our lock stream back hold time is now 3 minutes and 16:16 seconds based on performance, and that will give us a T-minus 9 resume of 15:17:46.
TLS copies.
Thank you, GLS. And let's see, OTC, you copy?
OTC copy.
TBC?
TBC copies.
PTC?
PTC copies.
And LPS?
LPS copies.
MILA?
MILA copies.
STM?
STM copies.
Safety console?
Safe copy.
SPE?
SPE copies.
LRD?
LRD copies.
SRO?
SRO copies.
And CDR?
CDR copies.
Thank you all. And with that, CGLS, go ahead and set the countdown clock to resume at 15:17:46.
Yes, sir. 15:17:46. That's complete.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 38 minutes, 43 seconds and counting.
Very good, thanks.
Right now, our weather conditions here at the Cape are observed go. So we hope we can maintain that now for about another 45 minutes.
Give us our camera support for launch on 1097.
We're going to look now at
Cameras are ready to support
a
and
video about the history of Space Shuttle Atlantis.
long range north,
It's a
long range south, 8,
Atlantis
medium range is north,
retro video
medium range south, 6,
about Atlantis' storied career.
and short range R6.
All right, then I have to.
Since first arriving at the Kennedy Space Center 25 years ago, Space Shuttle Atlantis has made the 4-mile trek from KSC's Vehicle Assembly Building to its oceanside launch pads more than 30 times. The fourth of NASA's 5 orbiters, Atlantis' career has not been lacking in firsts. Among them, the first shuttle to deploy a probe to another planet, the first shuttle to dock to a space station, and the first shuttle to fly with a glass cockpit. Atlantis has traveled more than 115 million miles in the pursuit of exploration. Its legacy enabled NASA and its international partners to accomplish some of the most complex work in human spaceflight history. Work that has yielded immeasurable benefits and allowed us to greatly advance the frontiers of knowledge.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 36 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Once the external tank separates from Atlantis, 8 minutes and 30 seconds into the mission, it will be in an elliptical orbit of 136 statute miles by 36 statute miles. And then 45 minutes after launch, there will be a 2-minute burn of the orbital maneuvering system once again to raise and circularize the orbit to 141 statute miles by 98 statute miles. The orbit will then gradually be raised to 253 statute miles in order to rendezvous with the International Space Station. Should Atlantis need to turn around and come back, the primary abort once around location is the shuttle landing facility at the Kennedy Space Center, and there is an alternate backup site also available at White Sands in New Mexico. The primary end of mission site is here at the Kennedy Space Center at the shuttle landing facility, and the alternate is NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center at Edwards Air Force Base in California, as is customary. At T-minus 34 minutes, 50 seconds and counting, this is Shuttle Launch Control.
CHTD.
What HGD?
I have some fill-in for step 935.
935, okay.
On page 1198. When you're ready.
Go ahead.
The op number is 80, run number is 1, and the log number is LCC4-062711-011.
Copy that, thank you.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 31 minutes, 57 seconds and counting. Shuttle Weather Officer Kathy Winters has just advised Shuttle Launch Director Mike Leinbach that we are still currently observed go for launch. We're watching an area that is inland that we believe will be passing to the northwest by about 3 miles at launch time, so assuming there are no buildups associated with it, and the shuttle training aircraft will be watching that closely, we are cautiously optimistic that we will be go for a launch at 11:26. Right now out at the launch pad, the temperature is 81 degrees and it's 83 at the shuttle landing facility. At T-minus 31 minutes, 10 seconds and counting, this is Shuttle Launch Control.
CCME, OTC.
CCME.
Steps 1077, 1078.
Complete.
Did you do 1078?
1078 was not performed.
Not performed, thank you. CDPS, OTC.
CPS.
Step 1085, 1086. Were those not performed?
That's affirmed.
Okay, and 1087 is complete?
1087 is complete.
Thank you.
SRO and 212.
Go SRO.
Range is go for countdown resumption and the T0 of 152646. Range status is go for launch.
Excellent, thank you.
CGLS, OTC.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Step 1095, 1096.
Stand by, please.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 28 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. A pre-flight software check of the Space Shuttle's master events controller called a bite check has been completed. This main engine controller relays commands from the orbiter's computers to fire explosive charges to the solid rocket booster hold-down bolts at launch and to separate the tanks and the twin boosters in flight. It's a customary milestone that occurs at about T-minus 29 minutes. Eastern Range has just given a go to pick up the countdown at T-minus 9, so the range is green. Launch weather appears to be good. We'll be watching the return to launch site weather very closely. The Spaceflight Meteorology Group in Houston will be making the call on our RTLS weather, and if we were go to pick up the count at T-minus 9. But we do have some sunshine here now. And we're going to be watching this area off to the northwest, but right now we're cautiously optimistic. And the post-launch inspection teams are being assembled right now at the roadblock located near the Launch Control Center.
OTC, CHCD.
HGD.
I can give you step 1142. Our confidence checks are complete.
Copy 1142.
And that post-launch inspection team will be going into the pad as soon as it's determined that the pad is safe for crew entry. And the closeout crew has been cleared from the launch pad. As we've seen, the white room is configured for launch. At T-minus 26 minutes, 37 seconds and counting, this is Shuttle Launch Control.
TVD, OTC.
TVD.
Are we going to have to do step 1123?
Now it'll be not performed today.
Not performed, thank you.
OTC, CPVD.
Good, PVD.
Okay, I can also give you step 1126, payload bay purge flow rate set for launch.
Copy that, thank you.
Head into DSP.
Go SPE.
Did you have the CMQC here with us?
CMQC?
That's firm. CMQC is here.
Okay, Jeff, one last lot of constraints listed is for our LOX pump. The guys are struggling a little bit inside of IPRACA in order to get the dispositions and signatures in there. We are going to hand sign it back here, and then we will take that back to CMQC, and what I'd like to do is have CMQC remove that wad from the constraints list once it is delivered to him. Technically, we are okay to go fly, and then ought to be sufficient to get that last constraint removed from the constraints list.
Okay, CMQC, you copy and concur?
Copy and concur.
Okay, and also SPE, if we, for some reason we can't get that just full even hand done, we can still do it over the net here if we need to.
Understood. But we just hand signed it, so it's on its way back to CMQC.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and thanks CMQC for your support as well.
Not a problem, sir.
This is shuttle launch control, T-minus 21 minutes, 24 seconds and counting, or correction, T-minus 9 minutes and holding with 21 minutes, 20 seconds remaining in this planned built-in hold. Continuing to count down toward picking up the countdown at T-minus 9 minutes. Right now we're looking at a little area of weather that's popped up over Merritt Island to the west. The larger area of precipitation to the northwest appears that it's going to be well biased by the time the launch is scheduled to go. However, the shuttle training aircraft with Rick Sturko is looking at that very closely to try to characterize exactly what it's doing and how stable it is and where it will be, as well as looking at this little small area that is over North Merritt Island that is gradually being characterized as something that could become a rain shower. And we want to see how safe that'll be. We have 18 minutes, 20 seconds remaining in this built-in hold at T-minus 9 minutes. Rick Sturko reports that the weather looks reasonably stable to him. He doesn't see any buildups. We're looking at an area off to the southwest that looks good. However, the Spaceflight Meteorology Group in Houston that's in charge of forecasting weather for return to launch site has a number of factors that they have to consider. A combination of cloud ceiling, any buildups, any rain showers, all of this have to be factored into the flight rules. And then they will be the ones that will give us a go to proceed at T-minus 9 minutes, and if we need to, and it looked like the weather is going in the right direction, but we're not quite there yet, we could even count down all the way to T-minus 5 minutes and see what the weather holds for return to launch site. So it's looking our way. We're not quite there yet, but we're still cautiously optimistic. At T-minus 9 minutes and holding, 17 minutes remaining in this planned built-in hold. This is shuttle launch control.
attention all personnel. We have 16 minutes of hold time remaining here at T-minus 9 minutes. We're tracking no technical constraints. One paper item that we're looking to remove from our constraints list as we continue to watch our weather approaching our launch time.
TLT, OTC, clear hardware, caution warning memory, and verify no unexpected errors.
CLT, that's in work. OTC, TLT, clear caution. Hardware memory complete.
Copy that.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 9 minutes and holding, 13 minutes 30 seconds remaining in this built-in hold. Joining us now is Pete Nikolenko. He is the Assistant Launch Director for today's countdown. And Mike, or rather Pete, I wonder if you could tell us, first of all, how does the vehicle look? And then tell us specifically what the weather is that we're looking at right now.
Sounds good, George, and good morning. The vehicle's really been performing exceptionally well. We've had a really clean countdown. A couple of very minor ground issues, but we've cleared those. And at this time, the crew's in, teams are ready, and then the vehicle, the pad, and all the teams are ready to go. We have been watching the weather, and we knew that weather was going to present a challenge for us today. We are increasing our optimism. Certainly, things look pretty good on the launch weather side. Certainly, we're looking and working with the Space Flight Meteorology Group and our Ascent Flight Director and the Flight Control Team, because we want to ensure that the weather for our return to launch site abort landing, just in the event if needed, is good enough to support for launch. So currently we're watching some clouds and at a 12,000 foot level that are potentially building and moving into our general area, and so we need to protect this period of time, not just to protect for the launch window, but also for about 25 minutes after launch in order to provide appropriate visibility in case we had to return to this KSC launch site.
So does that mean that the weather reconnaissance aircraft, the STA with Rick Sturko, is providing a lot of input to what he's actually seeing?
Absolutely. In fact, we're relying very heavily on the observed conditions of CJ in the shuttle training aircraft to see what, in fact, that they're really seeing up in the air, and confirming what the meteorologists are working and seeing from their data. So combined together, we get the forecasters as well as the observations, and conclude with the appropriate weather.
Well, Pete, thanks very much, and we'll let you go back to listening to those reports coming back from Rick Sturko. We've got 11 minutes and 18 seconds remaining in this built-in hold at T-minus 9 minutes. This is Shuttle Launch Control.
CMQC, OTC.
Go ahead.
Yeah, send somebody over to 145 standby with Op 38 for the recorder activation, please.
Somebody should be standing by, ma'am.
Thank you.
This is Shuttle Launch Control. 10 minutes remaining in this planned built-in hold at T-9. Before we come out of the hold, we're going to be listening very carefully to our launch director, Mike Leinbach, and our NASA test director, Jeff Spaulding, because they will be strategizing based on what is being observed, what we want to do as far as, first of all, picking up the count, whether we will or should not, and then if we do we want to press down all the way through, or might we take advantage of an optional hold at T-5 minutes? So we should begin. I think they may hold off a couple of minutes on doing some of their polls before they get give that go. But at any rate, we're going to be monitoring that, and you'll be able to hear what Mike Leinbach and Jeff Spaulding have to say about what the strategy will be and what the directions to the launch team are. At T-9 minutes and holding, this is Shuttle Launch Control.
CISL, JRPS, and Houston Flight. Perform the L-15 recorder activation. ISL. ISL copies. JRPS. JRPS copies. And Houston Flight.
Houston Flight copies.
PLT, OTC.
Go ahead.
Panel R1, payload aux, switch on.
That's some work.
And MS1 OTC.
MS1, go ahead.
Activate the V10 recorder.
And that's at work.
Box is on OTC.
Copy.
And attention all personnel, this is the NTD conducting the launch status check. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC.
OTC is go.
TBC.
Tank and booster go.
PTC.
PTC is go.
LPS.
LPS is go.
Houston flight.
Houston flight, if you pull me at the end, I would appreciate it. Stand by.
Yes, sir, we'll pull you later. Mila.
Milo's go.
STM.
STM is go.
Safety console.
Safety console is go.
SPE.
SP is go.
LRD.
LRD is go.
SRO.
SRO's go. You have a range clear to launch.
And CDR.
CDR is go.
And Launch Director NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed with the exception of Flight, who still needs a little bit more time to make his evaluations on RTLS weather.
I copy that. I'll do my poll at this time. KC Chief Processing Engineer, verify no constraints to launch.
No constraints.
Thank you, Steve. KC Safety and Mission Assurance.
Safety and Mission Assurance is go, Mike.
Thank you, Terry. Payload Launch Manager.
Hey, Mike, on behalf of the ISS Ground Processing Team, I want to say thanks to you and the Shuttle team. It's been a great partnership, and we are go.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Range weather.
Launch weather has no constraints to launch.
Thank you, Kathy. Atlantis Flow Director.
On behalf of the Atlantis and KSC Shuttle Processing Team, we are go.
Thank you, Angie. Ops Manager.
See, Mike, waiting to get final go from Flight here. Let's hear what he says, and we'll get back to you.
Copy that. Atlantis Launch Director, Air to Ground 1.
Atlantis go.
Okay, Fergie, we're starting to feel pretty good down here on the ground about this one today. So on behalf of the greatest team in the world, good luck to you and your crew on the final flight of this true American icon. And so for the final time, Fergie, Doug, Sandy, and Rex, good luck, Godspeed, and have a little fun up there.
Hey, thanks to you and your team, Mike. Until the very end, you all made it look easy. The shuttle's always going to be a reflection of what a great nation can do when it dares to be bold and commits to follow through. We're not ending the journey today, Mike. We're completing a chapter of a journey that will never end. You and the thousands of men and women who gave their hearts, souls, and their lives for the cause of exploration have rewritten history. Let's light this fire one more time, Mike, and witness this great nation at its best. The crew of Atlantis is ready for launch.
Thank you, sir. We'll get you going here in a couple of minutes.
NTD, Houston flight on 212.
Go ahead, Flight.
For the record, I'm go.
NTD copies, and Launch Director, that is our entire launch team, we are ready to proceed at this time.
I copy that. Ops Manager. Ops Manager.
Launch Director, Ops Manager on 212.
Yes, sir.
So you discussed it with the M.E.T. And the Flight Director. We are going to take a waiver to the RTLS forecast no-go based on the potential that there would be light precip if we ended up in an RTLS. They've looked at that. Chances of thunder showers are very low, and they believe that's an acceptable risk. We have plenty of energy. We only need one end of the runway on the RTLS. I think we got some sound rationale here to take that waiver on the RTLS forecast being no-go. So with that, we are clear, no working, no issues. You're go to launch.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. And Fergie, you heard those words, so we'll get you going here shortly. Good luck, guys.
Fantastic news. Thanks, Mike.
NTD, with that, you are clear to launch Atlantis.
I copy that, sir. Thank you. And for our entire test team, we have 1 minute and 15 seconds of hold time remaining here at T-minus 9 minutes before we will pick up the clock. And we do have a clear to pick up the clock at 9. NTD ISL. Go ISL. Order activation complete. Copy, thank you.
This is Shuttle Launch Control, T-minus 9 minutes in holding with 30 seconds remaining in this planned built-in hold. We'll pick up the countdown in 15 seconds. Picking up in 10 seconds.
The countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
DLS auto sequence has been initiated.
Ground launch sequencer will be checking over 1,000 parameters between now and when it hands off to Atlantis' onboard computers at T-minus 31 seconds. And from 31 seconds on, Atlantis' onboard computers will be completely in control of the countdown and for main engine start. And it will assess in the last 6.6 seconds whether the engines are up to full thrust.
PLT, OTC, connect essential buses to fuel cells per your checklist.
PLT in work. OTC, PLT, that's complete.
Copy.
In about 20 seconds, we'll be retracting the crew orbiter access arm.
DLS is go for orbiter access arm retract. Atlantis, this OTC, this day has been over 30 years in the making. There have been many fabulous missions throughout the years. On behalf of KSC launch teams, past and present, we salute the entire astronaut corps for their dedication, not only for our expanded knowledge of the universe, but for the improvement you have contributed to on Earth. Have an excellent mission and Godspeed.
Fantastic words, Roberta. Thank you very much. Great to your team. Thank you, sir.
It's orbiter test conductor Roberta Wyrick from United Space Alliance. At T-minus 5 minutes, the pilot will be instructed to start the orbiter auxiliary power units.
JRPS OTC, start APU display recorders.
This JRPS recorders are running.
PLT OTC, perform APU pre-start.
Pre-start work. OTC, PLT, 3 gray talkbacks.
Copy, 3 gray talkbacks.
Coming up on T-minus 5 minutes in 3, 2, 1, T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
Go for orbiter APU start. PLT OTC, perform APU start. CDR OTC, reconfigure heaters.
That's in work.
Solid rocket booster safe and arm devices are now being armed.
OTC PMT, 3 good APUs.
Copy, 3 good APUs.
Next milestone is a check of the orbiter's flight controls.
TLS is go for PERT sequence 4.
And there will be a steering check of Atlantis's 3 main engines. Verifying now that the main engines are in their start position.
TLS is go for ET LO2 pressurization.
Starting now the retraction of the gaseous oxygen vent arm, the vent hood.
TLT OTC, clear caution warning memory. Verify no unexpected errors.
Fuel cells going to internal. External tank camera being activated at this time.
OTC, PLT, no unexpected errors.
Copy that. Flight crew OTC, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow.
That's in work.
T-minus 2 minutes.
TLS is go for ET LH2 pressurization.
Solid rocket booster cameras being activated. T-minus 30 seconds. Sound suppression water system is being armed. T-minus 1 minute. But oxygen and liquid hydrogen fill and drain valves are closed. T-minus 40 seconds, handing off to Atlantis' computers at T-minus 31. T-minus 35, 33.
Clock will hold at T-minus 31 seconds due to a failure.
And we have had a failure. Grand lot sequencer.
We had a problem on the GOX retract switches. NNTDSP. Go ahead. Before we need guys to go do the verification per the LCC, please.
All right, CMAC.
Yes, CMAC. The LCC says we need to verify using a camera, and we're positioning camera 62 right now.
Okay, let us know as soon as 62 is swung over and you can verify LCC for GVA retract, please.
1 second while we get a verification that the GVA has fully retracted per our pre-plan.
This is C.M.E.T. We verify retracted.
Okay, and you can verify that it is fully retracted per the instructions that we've been that we developed, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and SPE?
And NTD, SPE concurs. They satisfy the requirements of GSE 13 pre-plan contingency. I am go.
Okay, I copy. And launch director?
Yes, sir. I heard all that and concur. Press on.
All right, very good.
NTD, ST.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I need concurrence to GLS and mass to clear the hold, please.
Very good. And GLS, you have concurrence? Go.
Copy that. It's in work.
Thank you. Let us know when that's complete.
NTD, we have it in work.
All right, guidance.
And just a reminder for folks, our lock turn back hold time is 3 minutes and 16 seconds.
NTD, CTLS on 212. We're ready to go.
All right, very good. And launch director, with that cleanup, we're going to go ahead and proceed.
Yes, sir. Please do.
All right, and all personnel, we are going to pick up the clock here momentarily. And GLS, you can resume the clock on your mark.
Copy that. Countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
E-minus.
Go for auto sequence start.
Handoff to Atlantis' computers has occurred. Solid rocket booster nozzle steering check and work.
20.
Firing chain is armed.
15.
Go for main engine start. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Program, Houston.
Roger roll, Atlantis. Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis. The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history. 24 seconds into the flight, roll program complete. Atlantis now heads down, wings level on the proper alignment for its 8.5-minute ride to orbit. 4.5 million pounds of hardware and humans taking aim on the International Space Station. 40 seconds into the flight, the 3 liquid fuel main engines throttling back to 72% of rated performance in the bucket, reducing stress on the shuttle as it goes transonic for the final time. Engines now revving up, standing by for the throttle up call.
Atlantis, go at throttle up, no action, DPDT.
Go with throttle up, no action on DPDT.
That call from Capcom Barry Wilmore, a transducer, instrumentation only, no action required. Atlantis now 15 miles in altitude, already 16 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 1 minute 40 seconds into the flight. Atlantis flexing its muscles one final time. Atlantis traveling almost 2,600 miles an hour, 21 miles in altitude, 24 miles downrange, standing by for solid rocket booster separation. Booster officer confirms staging a good solid rocket booster separation. Guidance now converging. The main engine steering the shuttle on a pinpoint path to its preliminary orbit. 2 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Atlantis already traveling 3,200 miles an hour, 35 miles in altitude, 50 miles downrange. The propulsion officer reports the orbital maneuvering system engines have ignited. Atlantis kicking on its afterburners for 1 minute, 23 seconds for the final phase of powered flight.
Atlantis, 2 engine towel.
failure. However, Atlantis' 3 engines performing perfectly. 4 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. Atlantis currently traveling 5,500 miles an hour, 62 miles in altitude, almost 200 miles downrange. 4 minutes of powered flight remaining. Atlantis speeding straight as an arrow toward its date with the International Space Station Sunday morning. Coming up on the 5-minute mark. Atlantis now traveling 6,500 miles an hour, 66 miles in altitude, 250 miles downrange.
Atlantis, press to ATO.
Press to ATO.
That call indicating we can make minimal orbital targets in the event of an engine failure. All 3 engines continue to function normally. Atlantis will begin its slow roll to a heads-up position shortly. Five and a half minutes into the flight. Atlantis traveling 7,700 miles an hour, 315 miles downrange.
Atlantis, single engine, ops 3.
Single engine, ops 3.
And the guidance officer here in Mission Control confirms that the computers are commanding the main engines to swivel.
Zaragoza, 104.
Single engine, Zaragoza, 104.
We've rolled to a heads-up position now, providing better communications to the tracking and data relay satellite system as Atlantis heads uphill. 6 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight.
Atlantis, press to MECO.
Press to MECO.
That call indicates that we can make our normal orbital cutoff targets in the event of an engine failure. However, all 3 main engines continue to function normally.
Nominal. Fergie, go the plus X, go the pitch.
Nominal shutdown plan. Go for the plus X, go for the pitch.
That call indicating that we will be in good shape for the orientation of Atlantis for external tank photography following main engine cutoff. Now 7 minutes into the flight. One minute, 20 seconds till main engine cutoff. Atlantis traveling 12,000 miles an hour. The main engines will soon be throttling down once again to limit the stress on the shuttle and its 4 crew members to that of 3 times the effective gravity. Atlantis currently traveling at a speed of more than 4 miles a second. 1 minute of powered flight remaining for Atlantis. Three good main engines, 3 good auxiliary power units, 3 good fuel cells. Approaching the 8-minute mark into the flight. Atlantis now traveling more than 15,000 miles an hour. Eight minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, standing by for main engine cutoff. That'll be followed a few seconds later by the separation of the external fuel tank. Booster officer confirms main engine cutoff. For the last time, the Space Shuttle's main engines have fallen silent as the shuttle slips into the final chapter of a storied 30-year adventure. Now standing by for external tank separation. Atlantis off the tank. Commander Chris Ferguson will be maneuvering Atlantis now into an orientation to enable Sandy Magnus to capture digital still imagery of the external fuel tank as it drifts away.
OMS 1 is not required. Your preliminary OMS 2 TIG 37 minutes.
37 minutes, no ohms 1 required, thanks.
This is Mission Control Houston. Atlantis safely in its preliminary orbit. Following a flawless launch from the Kennedy Space Center, albeit about 2.5 minutes late at 10:29 a.m. Central Time. The launch slightly delayed while engineers at the Kennedy Space Center confirmed the complete retraction of the gaseous vent arm at the launch pad. Commander Chris Ferguson is currently orienting Atlantis into the proper attitude to enable Sandy Magnus to capture digital still imagery of the external fuel tank as it drifts away for the final time. Atlantis currently in an orbit of 140 by 36 statute miles. That's the preliminary orbit that will be increased in altitude at its apogee through the firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines 26 minutes from now.
Houston, Atlantis, you ready for MTS TBC ISO?
That's affirmative, Chunky. We are ready. Chunky, also, after you get those closed, we'll be ready for APU hide shutdown. On 3-4, the only delta is tele-only control is not required. And when you get ready for Ops 105, we are ready as well.
We copy all. APU hide shutdown. On 3-4, except tail-only control not required, and we're ready for 105.
That's a good readback.
This is Mission Control Houston here in the Shuttle Flight Control Room. Post-insertion activities underway under the direction of Ascent Flight Director Richard Jones, second from your right, who presided over all of the work that was done associated with making sure that the weather was acceptable for launch from a return to launch site abort standpoint for the Spaceflight Meteorology Group. On the far right, Flight Director Tony Sacacci, he will preside over Atlantis' final entry 12 days from now. Butch Wilmore, Barry Wilmore, the Capcom, the spacecraft's communicator, in the dark shirt, and on the far left, Lee Archambault, the astronaut who was in direct contact with Deputy Chief Astronaut Rick Sturckow. Sturckow was assessing the weather and real-time observations as he flew the shuttle training aircraft around the vicinity of the Kennedy Space Center in the final hours prior to launch. Handshakes all around here in the shuttle flight control room. As we move into the post-insertion time frame, the initial phase of getting Atlantis set up for orbital operations, the countdown clocks here in Mission Control currently ticking backward to the first firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines in what is known as the OMS 2 burn, just a bit under 22 minutes from now. That will begin to raise the orbit, the apogee of Atlantis' orbit. Essentially, the launch itself was the first rendezvous maneuver to catch up to the International Space Station for a docking on Sunday morning. With Atlantis in the early minutes of its final flight and the final flight in the history of the shuttle program, we're going to go back down now to the Kennedy Space Center at the launch site for replays of today's launch that occurred at 10:29 a.m. Central Time.
TIG of 37:45, we like that, and no deltas, the 3-6 or 3-7.
3-5 and subsequent in work.
Thanks, Atlantis. We're watching.
Hey, Houston, just to tag up with you, we show ourselves complete through the MPS power down, just waiting on your go when the time comes.
Okay, we are ready for MPS power down when on time, and if you could check the MPS pneumatic helium iso to GPC, that should get them.
Okay, pneumatic helium iso to GPC. Thanks for the check.
As we watch the replays of Atlantis' final launch, Capcom Barry Wilmore talking to Commander Chris Ferguson on board Atlantis. The main propulsion system has been shut down. The external tank umbilical doors have closed. The auxiliary power units have been shut down. Everything going well. Less than 22 minutes following Atlantis' launch. The crew on board Atlantis will be busy over the course of the next several hours setting up shop on board the orbiter, activating payload buses, breaking out laptop computers, preparing for the opening of the payload bay doors, after which the ascent team of flight controllers will assess all of Atlantis' systems for a go for on-orbit operations. A slightly longer workday than usual for the crew of Atlantis, since there are only 4 crew members on board instead of the usual 6 or 7. Later in the day, the checkout of the shuttle's robotic arm, along with other activities preparatory to the inspection that will take place of Atlantis' thermal protection system tomorrow, standard customary operations for the second day of any shuttle flight.
Houston, Atlantis, MPS power down is complete, and with that, we would like to thank the Pratt & Whitney Rocketdyne team and the SSME team for their flawless performance over this 30-year shuttle flight history. 135 flights, It's a 7,000-pound engine that puts out 1.5 million pounds of thrust, and they pitch the equivalent of a perfect game every flight. From everyone who's ridden on these rockets, we thank you.
We concur with that assessment, Atlantis. Good and pertinent and true words.
We're putting ET umbilical door closure in work, Butch.
Mechanical Systems Officer here in Mission Control watching over the closing of the external tank umbilical doors. Words of compliment from pilot Doug Hurley for all of the propulsion system engineers who presided over 135 flights of the Space Shuttle, and the performance of Space Shuttle main engines, the external fuel tank, the solid rocket boosters that propelled these vehicles, and hundreds of humans to orbit. The external tank umbilical doors now closed and latched, confirmed by the Mechanical Systems Officer here in Mission Control. Atlantis soon to maneuver into the correct orientation for the firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines about 9 minutes from now, the A.M.E.T. burn that will help to refine Atlantis's altitude as it now begins its trek to catch up to and dock with the International Space Station on Sunday.
Hey, Houston, we're ready for the maneuver if you are.
Affirmative, Atlantis, we are ready.
Atlantis now beginning to maneuver into the correct orientation for the firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines 7.5 minutes from now. This will be a firing of both orbital maneuvering system engines at the rear of the shuttle that flank the vertical tail fin. The firing of this A.M.E.T. burn, as it is called, about 1 minute 4 seconds in duration. This is Mission Control Houston, less than 2 minutes away from the orbital maneuvering system burn to increase Atlantis' altitude. This will be a 1 minute 4 second firing of both orbital maneuvering system engines. The guidance, navigation, and control officer reports Atlantis is in a good configuration for the burn, as does the propulsion officer here in Mission Control.
Houston, we think we're in a good config for the burn.
That's affirmative, Atlantis. We show you in a good config for the OMS-2 burn.
Standing by for the firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines. And the propulsion officer reports that the OMS-2 burn is underway.
We see a good burn, Atlantis. No further trim is required. We'll meet you in the post-OMS-2 tab.
Copy and concur. Thanks, Houston.
And as we watch the replay of Atlantis separating from its external fuel tank following its launch almost 40 minutes ago, the confirmation from Capcom Barry Wilmore here in Mission Control to Commander Chris Ferguson that we've had a good firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines, the OMS-2 burn helping to refine Atlantis' altitude as it begins its trek on the road for its 2-day chase to catch up to the International Space Station. Atlantis now at an altitude of 143 by 98 statute miles.
Here comes the gimbal check, Houston.
We are watching. And Chunky, no deltas to your post-burn reconfig.
Copy, no delta.
This is Mission Control Houston, now back here at the Johnson Space Center. The ascent team of flight controllers on duty, led by Flight Director Richard Jones, along with spacecraft communicator Barry Wilmore, following the launch of Atlantis 42 minutes ago, following a very, very slight delay while the ground launch sequencer at the Kennedy Space Center verified that the gaseous vent arm, the beanie cap, if you will, was fully retracted from the top of the orbiter's external fuel tank. With the launch having been completed, the first maneuver, the first major maneuver of the flight, the OMS 2 burn of the orbital maneuvering system engines, has just been accomplished. Atlantis now flying at an altitude of 143 by 97 statute miles in pursuit of the International Space Station, flying from northwest to southeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator.
On 5-3 if you're ready.
Affirmative, we are ready for 106, Fergie.
Houston, contact from the mid-deck. How do you copy?
Sandy, we have you loud and clear. How us?
Very good. I have you loud and clear as well.
Yeah, it's good talking to you, Sandy.
Mission Specialist Sandy Magnus now out of her seat on the flight deck, having made her way down to the mid-deck to begin the preliminary configuration of the systems down there. In the meantime, Rex Walheim will be working to begin the configuration of the aft flight deck hardware. Commander Chris Ferguson and pilot Doug Hurley will be checking out the shuttle's robotic arm, unfurling it from the port sill of the shuttle's payload bay at about the 6.5-hour mark into the mission, performing a checkout of its systems before it is used tomorrow to grapple the orbiter boom sensor system for the initial inspection of Atlantis' thermal protection system.
Hey, Houston, we show ourselves complete with the ascent checklist. If you agree, we'll meet you in post-insertion.
We do agree with that, Atlantis. And while I got you, Fergie, if you'd like to set up a timer for your NC1 TIG, it's at 3:39. 3
hours, 39 minutes. We appreciate that. Thanks.
You bet.
Here in the Space Shuttle Flight Control Room, the ascent team looking over the shoulders of Atlantis' quartet as they begin to set up shop for at least a dozen days of on-orbit operations. For those keeping track, the exact liftoff time for Atlantis on its final mission was 10:29 and 3.9 seconds Central Time, 10:29 and 3.9 seconds Central Time today. Just about 2 minutes and change behind schedule, while the Kennedy Space Center held the countdown clock at the T-minus 31 second mark, just before the ground launch sequencer would do the handoff to the shuttle's onboard computers to verify the full retraction of the beanie cap, or the gaseous vent arm, that is located at the top of the shuttle's external fuel tank.
Hey, Houston, we're ready for Block 1. Any deltas?
Good question, Fergie. There are no deltas. As you recall, though, we will be going single G2.
Absolutely. Single G2, no deltas, and here we go.
We are watching.
Houston, it's step 1. If you like the M.E.T, we'll give you the Ops 106.
Yes, we do like your M.E.T, Atlantis.
And as Atlantis' 4 astronauts continue to set up shop, configuring their data processing system for on-orbit operations that will set the stage for the opening of the payload bay doors about 35 minutes from now. Atlantis is currently flying over the southern Indian Ocean, about to swing south of the continent of Australia and back out over the Pacific Ocean. While most of the activity was centered around the launch of Atlantis in the Shuttle Flight Control Room down the hall from here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the team of flight controllers on console watching over the activities of the Expedition 28 crew, led today by Flight Director Emily Nelson. On the right of your screen, Robert Hanley is the spacecraft communicator talking directly to the half-dozen crew members on board the station. They were watching the launch on a television feed uplinked to them as they watched Atlantis begin its journey to link up to the International Space Station for the final time on Sunday morning at the outset of the delivery of some 4 tons of equipment and supplies that will fortify the station over the next 12 months. Of course, the station is led by Commander Andrei Botasenko, along with Russian crewmates Alexander Samakutyaev and Sergei Volkov, Satoshi Furukawa from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and NASA astronauts Ron Garan and Mike Fossum.
Block 3 in work, Houston.
With you in Block 3, Atlantis.
Hey, Houston, in Step 4, if you like the M-BAT, we've double-checked it. We like it. We're ready for Ops 201.
We do like the M-BAT and are ready for Ops 201.
This is Mission Control Houston, almost 1 hour into Atlantis' final flight. The 4 crew members setting up all of their equipment, setting up their data processing system as they convert the onboard software from the ascent load to the on-orbit load. About 30 minutes or so from now, 35 minutes perhaps, we'll get into the time frame for the opening of the payload bay doors and the activation of the radiators to take over from the flash evaporator system that was initiated about 5 minutes or so into the flight to provide cooling for the shuttle's electronics and avionics. The flash evaporator system provides temporary cooling during ascent and entry. Otherwise, the radiators dissipate heat once the payload bay doors are open and the radiators are deployed. Following its launch at 10:29 Central Time this morning, Atlantis settled into its preliminary orbit. That was followed about 30 or so minutes later by the firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines in the first altitude adjustment burn, essentially to raise the apogee of Atlantis' orbit as it began its 2-day trek to catch up to and dock with the International Space Station for the start of almost 8 days of joint docked operations with the 6 crew members on board the orbital outpost.
Hey, Houston, Block 1, Step 6. We double-checked that in-bat as well. We're ready for SM Ops 201.
Ready for that, Atlantis. Thanks for the heads up.
One programming note, at noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be going back down to the Kennedy Space Center for the post-launch news conference. The participants will be NASA Associate Administrator for Space Operations Bill Gerstenmaier, Bob Cabana, the Director of the Kennedy Space Center, Mike Moses, who's the Space Shuttle Program Launch Integration Manager and Chairman of the Pre-Mission Mission Management Team, and the Shuttle Launch Director, Mike Leinbach. Again, the post-launch news conference is targeted for noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time from the Kennedy Space Center, and we'll be going back down there for that. That should be close to the time frame that we'll be initiating the opening of the payload bay doors, but we'll keep you posted on mission audio once NASA television has gone back down to the Kennedy Space Center. Everything going very smoothly, the crew working ahead of schedule in its post-insertion timeline, beginning to set up all of the systems that it will use aboard the orbiter for the next 12 days.
Houston, Block 2 complete.
Block 2 complete. Thank you.
Atlantis, ComCheck, flight deck handle Mike.
We have you loud and clear, Rex. It's good to hear your voice.
Great to hear you, Butch. It's great to be back in space.
No doubt. Hey, while I've got you real quick, I have no deltas to your payload bay door opening attitude.
Okay, copy, Butch, thanks.
Yeah, that's on 1-5 when you get there.
Houston, step 10, ready for the LROG reset.
Affirmative, we will take that, Atlantis.
Here in the flight control room, standing is Paul Hill, the Director of Mission Operations here at the Johnson Space Center, talking with the ground controllers who basically take care of all of the building's functions, anything from air conditioning to the computer systems to the scheduling of time on the tracking and data relay satellite system. He has been going around the room congratulating the flight control team here, as I'm suspecting he will over the course of the next 12 days or so, from time to time with all the shifts in both the shuttle and station flight control rooms as the shuttle program enters its final 2 weeks of a 30-year program. Once again, we'll be switching to the Kennedy Space Center at the top of the hour for the post-launch news conference targeted for noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
I think we're done with Block 1.
Copy, we agree. Done with Block 1.
While the crew of Atlantis continues to configure its spaceship for on-orbit operations and the opening of the payload bay doors a short time from now, that post-launch news conference coming up at the top of the hour from the Kennedy Space Center will feature Bill Gerstenmaier, the NASA Associate Administrator for Space Operations, Bob Cabana, the Director of the Kennedy Space Center, Mike Moses, the Space Shuttle Program Launch Integration Manager, and Mike Leinbach, the Shuttle Launch Director. Again, the post-launch news conference coming up at the top of the hour at noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Atlantis launched from Launch Pad 39A in the final launch in Space Shuttle program history 1 hour, 10 minutes ago, flawlessly reaching orbit, conducting an orbital maneuvering system burn about 37 minutes into the flight to increase its altitude. The shuttle currently flying at an altitude of 141 by 97 statute miles over the South Pacific, about to begin a southwest and northeasterly trek that will carry it across the equator and the beginning of the second orbit of the mission. Once the payload bay doors are open and the mechanical systems officer confirms that has been completed, the crew will wait for a go for on-orbit operations.
The attitude we loaded, we'll give you the maneuver.
Ready for the maneuver.
The maneuver reported by Commander Chris Ferguson and acknowledged by Capcom Barry Wilmore on the left here in the shuttle flight control room is the maneuver to the payload bay door opening attitude. The payload bay doors will be opened. The radiators will be deployed to provide cooling for the orbiter's avionics and electronics until they are closed on landing day. Again, Flight Director Richard Jones will first go around the room to get a go for payload bay door opening. Once the doors are open, then he will take a poll of the ascent team of flight controllers to get a go for on-orbit operations, after which the crew will be out of its post-insertion checklist and into the timeline that will see Chris Ferguson and Rex Walheim set up a variety of laptop computers on the orbiter before Ferguson and Hurley begin to work from the aft flight deck of Atlantis to activate, unfurl, and check out the shuttle's robotic arm, maneuvering it from its sill on the port side of the payload bay in advance of the grappling of the orbiter boom sensor system tomorrow on flight day 2 and the checkout and inspection of the thermal protection system, starting with the starboard wing of Atlantis to make sure that the reinforced carbon-carbon did not suffer any damage during Atlantis' climb uphill. The orbiter boom sensor system, using a variety of laser cameras and sensors, will inspect the orbiter's nose and then move over to the port wing. All of that data, coupled with the ascent imagery, And the rendezvous pitch maneuver that Atlantis will do during its final approach for docking on Sunday to the International Space Station will be analyzed by the debris analysis team here at the Johnson Space Center as they begin the process of incrementally clearing the shuttle for its final entry back to Earth and a landing at least 12 days from now.
We copy.
And Flight Director Richard Jones now polling his team to get a go for payload bay door opening.
Atlantis, you are go for payload bay door opening.
Awesome news, Houston. Thanks. Go for payload bay doors. Hey, Houston, how long to Estill?
Yeah, just shy of 16 minutes.
Great news, thanks.
This is Mission Control Houston with approval having been given to the crew of Atlantis to open the payload bay doors. Commander Chris Ferguson querying the flight control team about how long it will take.
Atlantis, we assure that you probably know this, but just to make sure we're tagged up, you will be auto mode on the payload bay door opening.
Auto mode on the doors, thank you.
The reference to how much time until Estill refers to an FM ground station that is located here at the Johnson Space Center, through which some downlink TV may be available. Typically, about one orbit into the flight, we will get a couple of minutes of television around the time of payload bay door opening, so we'll see how that goes. The payload bay doors will be operated for their opening by Mission Specialist Rex Walheim, backed up by Commander Chris Ferguson.
UCF sync config.
That is affirmative, Atlantis.
Copy.
One of the other big ticket items for Atlantis' crew will be the deployment of the dish-shaped KU band antenna over the starboard forward sill of the payload bay.
If we missed anything?
Okay, we'll take a look.
Chris Ferguson asking Capcom Barry Wilmore to make sure that the team here is looking over their shoulders to make sure they don't miss anything in the post-insertion checklist. Again, the KU band antenna will be deployed soon. Once the payload bay doors are open, that will enable a high data rate telemetry and downlink television capability from the shuttle.
Atlantis Block 3 does look good to us. Nice work.
The electrical systems officer here in Mission Control reports that the crew has begun the process of turning on the lights in the payload bay. That in advance of the operation of the systems by Rex Walheim and Chris Ferguson to actually open the doors, deploy the radiators, and setting the stage for a go for on-orbit operations. Atlantis crossing the Pacific at an altitude of 143 by 97 statute miles. Soon to cross the equator, moving from southwest to northeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator.
Block 5 complete, Houston.
We copy. Block 5 complete. Thanks for keeping us tied in.
And Block 4's in work.
4 in work.
Hey, we'll plan to go open on the doors at, let me see, an M.E.T. of about 131. Does that sound about right, Houston?
That's affirmative. 131 will be right at the beginning of the Estel window.
This is Mission Control Houston. The crew aboard Atlantis is preparing to open the payload bay doors and deploy the radiators on the orbiter to provide cooling for the shuttle's avionics and electronics for the duration of the mission until entry day. We're expecting to receive some downlink television as the crew begins that procedure about 5 minutes from now. So thanks to the Kennedy Space Center, they'll be delaying the start of their post-launch news conference by just 10 minutes. That will start now at around 12:10 p.m. Central Time, 1:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Bill Gerstenmaier, NASA's Associate Administrator for Space Operations out of NASA headquarters, Bob Cabana, the Director of the Kennedy Space Center, Mike Moses, the Space Shuttle Launch Integration Manager, and Mike Leinbach, the Shuttle Launch Director, will be the participants in the news conference at the Kennedy Space Center, which now will begin at about 12:10 p.m. Central Time, allowing us to bring to you the at least the beginning of the payload bay door opening aboard Atlantis.
Houston, Block 6 is complete, and we'll pick up with the open command for the doors about 31 minutes after.
Okay, we copy Block 6, and we'll be standing by for the doors. Atlantis, I do have a switch throw in R11 when you got somebody there, R11 lower.
Go ahead.
Supply water galley supply valve to open, talk back open. Thank you very much.
And the mechanical systems officer reports here in Mission Control that the latches are beginning to disengage for the opening of the payload bay doors. We're expecting and hoping for some television through the FM ground station here at the Johnson Space Center of that operation. Again, payload bay door opening in work. Waiting to lock up on this ground station that is called Estel here.
Great view on Elstow, Atlantis.
I love it when a plane comes together.
Amen.
The door's in the process of swinging open. The starboard door, as you can see, is already open. The port door to follow. You're looking right down at the front end of the Raffaello multipurpose logistics module, carrying some 8,000 pounds of logistics supplies to fortify the International Space Station for the next year. On the far right, nestled against the payload bay door, is the shuttle's robotic arm that will be unfurled and tested within the next few hours by Commander Chris Ferguson and pilot Doug Hurley in advance of its grappling of the orbiter boom sensor system for the initial inspection of the shuttle's thermal protection system tomorrow. Now the port door begins to swing open. In this split-screen image on the left is the shuttle's KU-band communications antenna, which also will be deployed a short time from now. And the mechanical systems officer reports the payload bay doors have been opened for the final time on Atlantis. Here in the flight control room, Flight Director Richard Jones now polling his team to get a go for on-orbit operations.
Atlantis, we just polled the room, and you are go for orbit ops.
Go for orbit ops. Great news, Houston. Thanks.
So with that, the crew will begin the process of doffing their launch and entry suits. And we'll press ahead now for the deployment of the KU-band communications antenna and the setup of the laptop computers on board the orbiter. Also on tap, the activation of the star trackers, the stowage of the escape pole, and other items that will clear the path for the rest of the day's activities that will culminate in the crew going to sleep around 7 p.m. Central Time tonight. We'll be switching the NASA television satellite back down to the Kennedy Space Center shortly for the start of the post-launch news conference in about 5 minutes at 12:10 Central Time, 1:10 Eastern Time. Once again, Bill Gerstenmaier, the NASA Associate Administrator for Space Operations, will be participating in that news conference, joined by the director of the Kennedy Space Center, Bob Cabana, Mike Moses, the Shuttle Launch Integration Manager, and Mike Leinbach, the Shuttle Launch Director. Again, Atlantis' payload bay doors now open, a go for on-orbit operations issued by Flight Director Richard Jones, everything going swimmingly in the early phase of Atlantis' final flight into space.
With today's final launch of the Space Shuttle, we turn the page on a remarkable period of America's history in space. while beginning the next chapter in our nation's extraordinary story of exploration. From the early exploits of Daniel Boone, Lewis and Clark, and Robert Peary, to the breakthrough journeys of Alan Shepard and John Glenn, Americans have always been a curious people, bold enough to imagine new worlds, ingenious enough to chart a course to them, and courageous enough to go for it. And the gifts of knowledge and innovation that we have brought back from the unknown have played their part in the building of our more perfect union. Some say that this final shuttle mission will mark the end of America's 50 years of dominance in human spaceflight. As a former astronaut and the current NASA administrator, I want to make clear that American leadership in space will continue for at least the next half century because we've laid the foundation for success. And for us at NASA, failure is not an option. Over 3 decades, the shuttle has brought this nation many firsts and many, many proud moments. It has helped the United States to maintain its leadership in space. It has vastly increased our knowledge about launch systems, which we'll apply to the next generation of space transportation. It opened the door to space for men and women of all races. It united our globe with communication satellites and helped us learn how to repair them in orbit. It launched science missions and brought the hundreds of research experiments to the International Space Station, which will be the centerpiece for our human spaceflight activities into the future. I know the transition from our flagship program to a new chapter in human spaceflight has not been easy. Change never is. I want to thank the NASA workforce for its dedication and professionalism. What you have accomplished continues to amaze the world, and we've only just begun. Tomorrow's destinations will inspire new generations of explorers, and the shuttle pioneers have made the next chapter of human spaceflight possible. President Obama is asking us to harness that American spirit of innovation, the drive to solve problems and create capabilities that is so embedded in our story and has led us to the moon, the great observatories, and to humans living and working in space. That American ingenuity is alive and well, and it will fire up our economy and help us win the future. Thank you, and Godspeed to Atlantis and her crew.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a very joyous day, the STS-135 post-launch news conference after the successful launch of Space Shuttle Atlantis today before near-record crowds in the Space Coast area. I believe that we have 1,535 news media here in attendance, and it looks like we crammed as many of you folks in the room as we possibly could today. Thank you very much for coming. We would like to begin things with by introducing the members of our panel, and then we'll have opening comments, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. To my immediate left is Mr. Bill Gerstenmaier, NASA Associate Administrator for Space Operations.
Good afternoon.
Bob Cabana, Kennedy Space Center Director.
Hi.
Mike Moses, Space Shuttle Program Launch Integration Manager and the Chairman of the Pre-Launch Mission Management Team.
Good afternoon.
And Mike Leinbach, Space Shuttle Launch Director.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Mr. Gerstenmaier.
Thanks, Mike. What a truly awesome day today. We got to witness something really, really special and something really amazing. And you may think that sometimes I talk about the hardware, but I'm really talking about the teams and the people that supported that launch that just occurred. What you saw is the finest launch team and shuttle preparation teams in the world that got this vehicle ready to go fly. You got to see the team perform everything we've asked them to perform over these years. The vehicle had a tremendous launch. The teams worked flawlessly, even the last minute to hold at 31 seconds. They worked through that with tremendous professionalism and got this launch off today. So just congratulations to the KSC team. I can't thank you enough for everything you have done for us. Everything I've asked this team to do here at KSC, they have done, and they've done it superbly and beyond my highest expectations. So thank you to the KSC team. The JSC team and the ISS team, they've still got to get busy, as well as the crew on orbit. The docking will be on Sunday. It's a pretty busy mission. You'll see that activity on orbit that we're going to go through. We're going to try to extend the mission probably an extra day. They'll work that through the mission management team as things go on. But I urge you to follow the mission and watch what's going on with what is going on with ISS, and really take in and spend a little extra time to understand the research and the activities that are happening on ISS. And then we look forward to a landing here at KSC. So again, still a lot of work in front of us, but what an awesome and great start to the mission today. So again, thank you, and I look forward to your questions later. Bob?
Thanks, Bill. First off, I want to thank Bill Gerstenmaier for the leadership that he has provided human spaceflight from NASA headquarters. He truly has done an outstanding job. And John Shannon's not here today, but John, I can't think of a finer program manager for the shuttle program to close it out and see us get this last vehicle on orbit. And of course, last but not least, I want to thank the two Mikes here. I think they did a truly excellent job leading the team through this last launch, and we got a little dicey there a couple of times, but we found our way through it, and I'll let them talk about that. It truly was an awesome, spectacular launch. And in my opinion, the only way it could have been better is if I'd have found a way to stow away on there somewhere, but unfortunately that didn't work out. I want to share with you what I shared with the launch team after the launch, and Bill kind of said it, but words can't express the gratitude I have for this team and the pride that I have in them. They are truly the most professional, the best, most outstanding technicians and engineers anywhere. And we owe them a great debt of thanks. They have just done a truly outstanding job in service to our country, and they've provided us with one heck of a ride for the last 30 years on the United States Shuttle program. And I just, they really need recognition. We're going to be going through a tough time. Change is hard, and we're going to have more folks walking out the door here in a few weeks. And, you know, they were and are performing their job absolutely flawlessly right up to the end, and that says a lot for them. It speaks to that professionalism. Change is difficult, but you can't do something else, you can't do something better unless you go through change. And all this talk about, you know, NASA's adrift, we don't have a plan. We do have a plan. We're enabling commercial space. We have the Commercial Crew program here at Kennedy, supported by the Johnson Space Center in Houston. We have 4 folks under contract trying to build a vehicle that will take Americans to space, supporting our International Space Station that's still up there until at least 2020 with Americans on board, a human spaceflight program. And yes, we have to rely on rides on Russian rockets for a while, but we're implementing those plans to get a commercial U.S. capability to get our folks there. And we're working very hard on a heavy lift program that will allow us, again, to explore beyond our home planet. If you look out to Pad B, you know, you see a shuttle structure on Pad A, but let me tell you, Pad B is in a lot better shape than that shuttle structure. And even though you see stuff coming down on the top of the pad, what you don't see is what's inside. All new fiber optics, all new digital control systems, a new lightning protection system that even helped us clear the shuttle down on Pad A for the lightning strikes that we've had. State of the art. So a lot of progress is being made to prepare for this multi-user capability at KSC, a multi-user launch complex where we can have a heavy lift program that allows us to explore, and commercial programs also. We announced the MPCV as Orion to go on that big rocket. That hardware starts arriving here at the Cape later this year for the first test article. Soon we'll have an announcement on the exact architecture of the rocket to go along with that. And so we are making progress. We're doing all that we need to do to help move us forward. So, you know, the shuttle program has been truly phenomenal, and I take great pride in this team and thank them for all they've done. We still got a lot to do before it's over, and they're going to be doing a lot of work on orbit, and then we're going to bring them home safe, and I'm looking forward to that landing back here at the Cape and shaking their hands after a great mission. So to all of you, thanks for your support, and we are going to get through this, and we're going to do well. But awesome launch today. Mike?
Thanks, Bob. Let's see. After years of training to tell me to do things in the right order, I'll do something in the wrong order here. I'm going to start out my remarks by telling you Mike tells you a lot that he leads the best launch team in the world, and I'll include that the Ascent team back in Houston, and they are truly the best. It is an honor and a privilege to serve with you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
The judgment they showed today, the leadership they showed today was absolutely amazing. So let me get back on track before I lose it. I'll talk about technical stuff, right? Because I'm good at that. So you saw these guys really perform. it started yesterday. I don't even know what time I was getting ready to take a nap, and they called up and said we took a lightning strike pretty much on the pad, and the team had that cleared within about 4 hours. We knew we were good to go, press on with the count. We still had to do some data review, still had to dot some I's and cross some T's. Echoed that to about 2 years ago when I first, 2.5 years ago when I first started. We had a lightning strike about that same time frame, made us delay 24 hours. Play that back about 2 years before that, we had a lightning strike that made us delay about 2 days. So it really shows you how well the team takes the challenge of recognizing that there's something we're not quite the best at, and we'll go become the best at it. And we really showed that with the lightning strike clearing. The decision to go tank today, in face of that weather forecast with the odds we had against us all day and for the weekend, I thought was unbelievable leadership as well to take us down that path and let us try today, and it really did pay off. Mike's team worked a couple of good technical issues, a LOX pump acting up a little bit, and then just to make it really exciting at 31 seconds, the Gox vent arm. I'll let Mike tell you about, again, that was a great example of how well the team had prepared ahead of time. And then we just worked that weather all day long, and we ended up coming right down to the wire. The range weather hung right in there, was pretty good all day long. We really had the advantage of having the weather recon aircraft up there to go slice up the clouds to truly find out how thick they were, where they really were, look at where showers were popping up and not. And when it came right down to it, we end up right up against our RTLS rain shower rule, which says we don't want rain showers within 20 nautical miles of the landing site, the SLF, the shuttle landing facility. And on this day, we had a few showers that were still popping up in that circle. So we were, at the time, needing to go. We were observed no-go at the landing site. But that's okay because RTLS landing wouldn't be for about 35 minutes after launch. But we were also going to be forecast no-go. And that's where we needed to talk about maybe taking a little bit of an exception today beyond what's printed in the rules to say we understand the situation a little better because this situation is not one that we wrote down ahead of time. And that's what we did. The team did a very thorough evaluation. The Ascent team led by Richard Jones back in Houston, and our weather recon aircraft with CJ Storkow flying, and all the team that supports them, did an amazing job of really talking about what conditions we were truly facing. We knew we had some showers that might pop up, but they would be limited in scope to only affect one end of the runway. We had good energy profiles that would let us land on either end of the runway so we could redesignate around a rain shower if it did pop up. Really, when you're flying through rain showers, you're worried about losing a lot of your energy, and we knew through calculations that even if we had that, we had an excess margin that would be okay even if we did happen to catch a rain shower at the bad time. But really what made us go today was the radar forecasts, the radar maps, the forecasts, and the observations by the STA pilot that showed there was really nothing developing down in the quadrant that would then blow up over the pad. So we knew we might have a tiny risk of a chance of a shower. We knew very well it was not going to be a thunderstorm, and that allowed us to be comfortable today to just go a little bit beyond the printed rule and take that extra exception at the end and go ahead and launch today. Proved out, I kept an eye on the radar map as we were flying uphill all the way through RTLS landing time. There never was a shower that popped up in the circle, and it was a really good decision by the team today. Had no problem endorsing that one. On the way uphill, we got a DPDT alarm, which is a delta pressure over delta time, basically a change in pressure. The cabin pressure dropped off just a tiny little bit. We attribute that to cabin stretch. If you think about it, as we're lifting up through, the cabin grows a little bit because of all the G-forces on it, and it just vents off a little bit of oxygen. Pressure was very stable after that little bit flip, so no worries. But it did ring an alarm on the way uphill to give the crew yet more excitement on this last mission. They got in orbit. MECO was right on target. OMS 2 was perfect, and they're doing a really good job. The doors are open now, and we're really looking forward to a great mission. As Bill said, this is a very critical mission for station resupply. We're going to do our best to try to stretch out an extra day to help get some stowage on station cleaned up and in good shape. And this is really going to posture the space station to be done for the future. So I think the shuttle program is ending exactly as it should. We built the International Space Station. We're stocking it up for the future and ready to hand it off, and we finished really strong. That said, we're not ready to look back or forward. We still have this mission to complete, so we're going to stay very focused on the mission at hand. A 12, hopefully 13-day mission in front of us that's going to be jam-packed, and we're handing off to the team over in Houston to get that executed. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike and just say I can't express again how proud I am to be sitting up here after a good, successful launch today.
Good. Thanks, Mike. Well, thanks for those opening remarks. That was very nice. And on behalf of the KSC Shuttle launch team, I accept those remarks. Very nice. Mike talked about the decision to go tank today, and he made it sound like it was a tough decision. Let me tell you how that really came down. We met in my office before the M.E.T. meeting, and we flipped a coin. That's how we really make decisions. No.
It's got a big dartboard.
It's a big dartboard. Now the program's over, we can divulge some of our secrets. We met before the meeting. We went over some strategy, and then the forecast was such that we had a decent shot at it. And as we've said before, we've tanked with worse predictions than that. And so we went with it today, and we got lucky. I mean, we got lucky is the way you can put it. From a launch weather perspective, Kathy Winters, our launch weather officer, did an outstanding job, and the folks that preceded her on console, Joel Tumbiolo and Mike McAleen, an outstanding job today, guys. Thank you very much. The forecast for the launch perspective was right on the money, and we got that little bit of clearing that we needed. And so from my perspective on the launch side, it was pretty easy. Richard Jones, on the other hand, the flight director, wrestling with the RTLS, that was a bit more challenging for him, and he worked his way through that, and it was just an outstanding job. So we got through all that, and the tanking went fine. We had a little bit of an issue with our LOX pump, the major pump that puts the liquid oxygen into the external tank. We were getting a little bit of a chill down on that pump, indicative of a very minor leak, and so we opted to sort of voluntarily switch to the other pump before we got into trouble on that one. That went per the book. Never uncovered the eco sensors or the depletion sensors in the tank at all, and so we were good there too. And so the LOX guys did a great job. Coming on down to the count, I thought we were in the clear until 31 seconds when the Cox vent arm gave us a little bit of trouble. And all that was, folks, was when we retracted the GVA, we didn't get one of the indicators that it was back and locked, and we have procedures in place to go verify visually that it's back. And indeed it was, and there's enough hydraulic pressure in that system that we were not concerned at all with the GVA coming back out during main engine ignition. So no issue there. Team worked through it very, very well. I think we launched with 58 seconds left in the window this time, which is an eternity lately, and so that worked out really well for us. And just on behalf of the launch team and all the thousands of people here at KSC, I'm just very, very proud that we finished as strong from a launch perspective as we did. Again, the mission ahead of us, landing ahead of us, and then we'll be able to look back and celebrate. Today was a great day. And there's a party in the VAB, so I hope you don't ask too many questions. And so with that, Mike. Yeah, that said, go ahead, Bob.
I was just one real quick before we take questions. I think y'all know Rick Sturko, a Marine, was flying the weather aircraft, and I was listening on the loop. And instead of using really technical meteorological terms, he put it in Marine terms, like I am, so that we could all understand. He said it's a really, really big hole.
All right, we will take questions. These gentlemen have been working since around midnight, and their day is not done, so we do want to let them get out of here by 2 o'clock at the latest. So we have about 30 minutes worth of questions, unless they nudge me and say they have to go sooner. To try to make sure everybody gets covered, please ask one question and a follow-up. Please make sure you wait for the microphone. Tell us your name and affiliation and to whom you're addressing your question. And we'll start in the front row with Seth Bornstein.
Seth Bornstein, AP, from Mike Leinbach. Can you describe sort of the mood after launch, in the launch control? Did it take longer for people to file out since it was the last one? Or how was it different than after other launches? Can you just describe what was going on there?
Yeah, you hit on it very good, Seth. It did take a while to leave the control room. We had photographers set up to take some pictures of the team, the entire team at once, and then individually or group pictures, whatever we chose to do. A lot of us walked around and shook everybody's hand. It seemed like we didn't want to leave. It was like the end of a party, and you just don't want to go. You just want to hang around a little bit longer and relish our friends and what we've accomplished. So it was very special. A lot of pats on the back today.
And just to follow up, either Mike, you talked about all the tiny technical problems you overcame. In the end, are you kind of glad that it was, instead of a completely clean count, which I know is easier, is it more sweet that you had to overcome all these things and yet still launch, or would you have just assumed had a nice, easier, cleaner count for you?
and anytime we get to a T0 and we get to orbit safely is good by me. So it was fine. It challenged the team a little bit at the end, but we've practiced that scenario numerous times, and so we were ready to go with it. In fact, we had written a little special procedure because in some of the testing of the Gox vent arm over the last month or so, we didn't always get that retract indicator. So we put together a little procedure, and we put the procedure together figuring if we do that, we'll never get that failure. Well, of course, we got the failure. And so we had it knocked today. That was no big deal.
Leo Enright with Irish Television. Just a question about the RTLS waiver. Would you have done this if the shuttle was going to fly another mission? The reason I ask being that it was always my understanding that one of the concerns was that if you flew through precipitation that it would damage the tiles. And I mean, I'm just wondering, were you just making the calculation that, well, hey, we're not flying it again, so that sort of tile damage doesn't matter, or am I completely misunderstood?
No, that actually, so last mission type thing was not part of the consideration today. But you are right, flying through rain showers will damage the tile. And so the rule's not written because you damage tile and then therefore it's a turnaround maintenance issue. The rule is the damaging of that tile literally is taking energy out of your profile. You remember the shuttle's coming in as a glider without engines. Every last little bit of energy is well managed to make sure you make the runway. We knew today for the approach profiles with the wind that we had, the headwinds, the crosswinds, and the brake energy we would see that we weren't going to have any energy problems. So losing a little bit of energy by flying through a rainstorm would be okay in today's situation. Just like you see with the forecasts, and we were talking pre-launch, no single forecast is the same. A 70% no-go one day is not the same as a 70% no-go the next day for different reasons. Those rain shower exception rules are the same thing. They're written for certain cases, but not every case. So we take a look at each one every time. It's one of the reasons we have people making these rules and not just a computer voting red or green to go or no-go. So did not come into consideration today at all.
Jim Siegel, Celebration Independent Newspaper. A question from Bob Cabana. You mentioned, Bob, some of the work being done on pad 39B. So looking forward now, when would you anticipate that work is going to be completed? What missions do you think are upcoming for that pad? And what about 39A? Is that going to kind of just stay where it is for a while for budget reasons or what?
Well, we're obviously preparing to be able to launch a heavy lift rocket off that pad as soon as possible, with our goal being 2016. Now, how things work out in the budget process, we'll have to see. That doesn't look feasible right now, but we want the pad to be ready to go. So we'll progress ahead to have it ready as soon as we possibly can for accommodating NASA rocket launches off it. 39A, you're right, we don't have funding right now to move with it, so we're going to kind of put it in a caretaker status eventually as we explore beyond our home planet. There are scenarios where we need 2 big launch pads to support 2 big rockets to go do some of the things we want to do. So down the road we do see a need for that pad. In the meantime, we'll make sure that it's not in such a condition that we can't bring it back up when we need it.
Okay, over here, Ken Kramer.
Hi, Ken Kramer for Spaceflight Magazine. Mike Leinbach. Well, first of all of you, I just want to say congratulations and thank you. Okay. And you're wearing a very elegant medallion there, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about it.
This is a little flag that I gave the launch team today. It's a STS-135 Prime Launch Team member, and I just wanted to give them something they could take with them and remember the good times, and so that's what this is about.
If I could just follow up with Bill Gerstenmaier, what is your reaction to these significant cuts to the proposed NASA budget by the House Appropriations Committee?
Again, I think it's too early to react to those cuts. Right? This is what we've seen from the House. We'll get some discussions with the Senate, and then eventually that'll get worked into what the NASA bill is. So I don't react to those. We understand what they mean. We understand the tough environment, and we'll work with that, and we'll watch the process go through, and we'll be prepared to execute with what we get when we finally get an answer from Congress.
Mark.
Mark Kirkman, Interspace News. Obviously, I don't
ask feeling questions normally, but this time I would like to. And in particular, I'd like the perspective of the whole panel, but in particular the two mics. In my view, there's kind of no other place where you can where you see the flight control teams and the launch teams the way when they're on their game. There's nothing like that to see them perform, whether it's simulations or real launch. And I'd like you all to reflect on the fact that no matter what follow-on program you get, this animal is never going to exist before. This is the last time you're ever going to see that kind of execution, and just your thoughts on that.
We have grown into a very cohesive team throughout the whole shuttle program, not just the flight control team and the launch team, but all the processing team, the designers of the missions, the payload folks. It's a very, very cohesive group. I'm not sure we'll never see it again. We have grown into a very, very good organization, and it's taken years to do that. But that doesn't say it can't be done again. In fact, it will be done again. It has to be done again. What we have learned in the shuttle program, in part, is how to work between centers, and you split the work up. Certain organizations are responsible for certain things. You respect that. And you go about your business and work together as a team. And it seems very natural to me to work this way. And so I'm sure it will happen again. There's no doubt in my mind.
And for me, I'll steal a quote from Gene Kranz, who calls the control center a leadership laboratory. And it really is that. It trains people to be critical decision makers, communicators, and leaders. And so while we aren't going to be churning out from that laboratory for a little bit. We have a whole batch of folks that are going to go out and seed both commercial industry and private industry and the NASA team and go push the envelope and take what they've learned and the skills they know how to do now and go help us keep moving to the future and to our future goals. So from that standpoint, I feel good that we're going to go take this team that's excellent at what they do and go out there and save the world, so to speak. And we will be able to rebuild that team when the time comes, and we need that again. But, yeah, in the short term, I know exactly what you mean, Mark. You've been there, so you recognize that it's in the short term, it's going to be something missed, that a chance to do that every day.
Okay. Right. Randy Siegel, WSTU Radio for Mike Lineback. Mike, you got the sash from Endeavor. You got the sash from Discovery. Did you get the one from Atlantis? And did you say anything special to the team after it was all over, realizing the finality of where we're at?
It's almost like we planted you in the audience. There's Atlantis. What I said to the team today, there's been a tradition in American manned spaceflight that the launch director has bid the crews farewell, the astronauts farewell on launch day, traditionally with good luck and Godspeed. And the definition of Godspeed that I like the best is have a prosperous journey. And so at the end of my speech to the launch team today, I wish them from the bottom of my heart good luck and Godspeed.
Okay, Tarek.
Thank you. Tarek Malik with Space.com. I have, I think, one and a follow-up. First, for the two mics, I know that during a launch you're fairly busy, and maybe you get only a few seconds to get a look at the actual ascent. I'm just wondering, when you did get a peek, did it shine brighter at all? Did it feel like it lasted longer? Was there anything different that set it apart as it was happening and as you were looking?
No, Tarek, you put the words in my mouth for me. To me, it looked like it was lifting off in slow motion. I failed to apologize like I did the last time that we didn't give you a big enough view, but for a long enough time before we hit the cloud deck. But to me, it hit slow motion there for a good 10 seconds. It was very moving. It was very beautiful.
It was special today. I remember standing there after the vehicle went into the cloud deck. You could still see the smoke from the SRBs and the main engines in the first stage, and it seemed like that cloud plume just was growing and just hovering and slowly drifting north. And Bill Dowdell, a good friend of mine, the payload launch manager, I believe I'm right when I say we put our arms around each other and just looked at it and said, we will never see that again. It was a special moment.
Greg, or Tarek, I'm sorry.
I just had one more follow-up. Sorry for Bill. You mentioned the same message that Administrator Bolden did in his recording about the U.S. not pulling out of human spaceflight. I know there's been a lot of talk in the public about that perception because of the lack of an iconic vehicle like the Space Shuttle, and I'm just wondering how you perceive the challenge to kind of combat that perception in the months and years ahead before the gap is complete.
I think one piece that we forget is we've created this unbelievable facility in space, this 16-partner, 900,000-pound research facility in space. And we've got to really maximize the way we talk about that and the way we use that facility. You know, we've got a chance to do unbelievable research in a facility that we've never been able to do. This is a unique period in our lives to get that done, so we need to do our level best to take advantage of that. And then when you talk about the flight teams, there's still a flight team on the ISS side that's managing 17 launches to that vehicle every year. They're juggling cargo manifests. They're juggling research manifests. We're looking at establishing a new nonprofit organization to manage the national lab portion of that ISS. So we are still in space, and we are still moving forward with the ISS. You're seeing commercial cargo come online later this fall and next spring. You'll see commercial crew come after that. So we're ready to keep going, and we're going to springboard off of what the shuttle has done and move the next 50 years and make them just as bright as these last 30 have been for shuttle.
Greg.
Greg Dobbs from HDNet Television. And this is for the two mics, because you're the guys on this group who spend the most time around the shuttle. It's a more highly technical question than Tarek's first question, but did you choke up?
Yep, most definitely.
Yes.
You open it to follow up.
I'll choke up if I do.
Elaborate on why you personally choked up. You're engineers. You're always just, analyzing things at every stage of ascent.
To be honest, I choke up at every launch. This one I choked up before launch, which was the unusual thing for me. But again, as an engineer, as whatever, I can't see how anybody who comes down here and sees a shuttle launch doesn't choke up and just swell with pride at seeing that thing go. It just does it to you every time.
Okay, in the pink.
Marcia Smith, spacepolicyonline.com. To Bob Cabana, you talked about the future of the pads, but not about the VAB. Do the commercial guys want the VAB? Does NASA need the VAB? Does it get an uplift or does it get bulldozed?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think there are folks who would shoot me if I thought about doing anything other than refurbishing it. Our plan is to refurbish Complex 39 to make it a multi-user spaceport, and that includes utilizing the VAB and the other facilities that are out there. We're partnering with Space Florida and commercial companies through Space Act agreements and use agreements to try and bring commercial work here. But we most definitely need that VAB for the heavy lift rocket that we're going to build to support launches out of Complex 39 that take us beyond Earth. So absolutely, we're going to continue to make it a viable part of the future, and that includes some refurbishment. So we're making the most of the downtime, the transition between programs. Fortunately, we only needed one shuttle pad, so we were able to get a jump start on 39B to start transitioning it to the future. And we need a little bit of downtime in order to make the modifications and transition from one program to the next, and that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcia.
I won't ask you how much it's going to cost, but will the government have to bear all those costs, or will those be shared with the commercial sector?
If the commercial companies are going to use it, they are going to have to pay to use it.
Irene.
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Reuters, for anybody who'd care to take this. You all inherited a vehicle that was ultimately proved far more complicated and labor-intensive to work on, and one of the goals that the shuttle program didn't meet was this low-cost reusability, reliability. I guess I'm just wondering why you think it took 30 years for the shuttle program to get to the point where it would stand down and give perhaps another operator, commercial or some other version of government, an opportunity to develop something that would actually meet one of those goals that the shuttle program was sold on.
Is that for me?
You can.
The shuttle program, we could not have built the space station without the space shuttle. And, it is a phenomenal achievement on orbit right now. So, I look back on what the shuttle's done in 30 years. The Hubble Space Telescope, Magellan, Ulysses, Galileo, the probes, it is, the shuttle opened up space. When you look back on the Apollo and prior, look at the makeup of the astronaut corps and look at it today. Look at the diversity within the astronaut corps. Look at the multi-nations that have flown to space on the space shuttle and what it's done. I don't think it ended early. I think it totally fulfilled what it was meant to do. Did it deliver on the costs that some people said? No. But did it achieve something that was not achievable by any other country or any other vehicle? Absolutely. So I think it's done a phenomenal job.
The Greens. Oh, go ahead.
Do you think that the commercial companies are going to have an easier time of developing vehicles that non-astronauts can fly in? I guess is what I was kind of alluding to with a simpler design.
Well, yes, but they're not going to be able to do what the shuttle did. The shuttle was designed to carry large payloads to orbit, to carry large crews to orbit, to stay on orbit for a long time, to service vehicles in space. A capsule is designed to go somewhere, drop somebody off, and bring them home. And is a capsule a lot easier to build? Absolutely. That's why we chose the Mercury capsule. NASA was working on lifting bodies when the space program was starting out because that was really the best way to go back and forth, to have some cross range, to land on a runway. But they needed to do it quickly and cheaply. And a capsule was the simplest, easiest way to do that. And it still is. And so we've been going back and forth to low Earth orbit for 50 years now. We ought to be able to define the requirements for somebody to build a capsule that allows them to take people up to the International Space Station and back, and not just the International Space Station, but Boeing has a contract with Bigelow Aerospace. There are going to be other destinations. Commercial space is not just a government contract to the space station. It's got to be more than that.
And I think also the shuttle program gave a lot of information that's going to be tremendously valuable to these programs that are emerging and coming forward. A lot of our computational fluid dynamics, some of the things we understand about boundary layer transition on the vehicle, how the vehicle flies, those kind of things are still important to capsules, how life support systems are designed inside the capsule, how docking mechanisms work. All those things that we have really kind of proven and refined throughout the shuttle years, we can hand those off to the commercial companies and they can pick those up and move those in another direction. So I think there was a lot learned from the shuttle program that isn't immediately evident to you until you look behind the hardware and you look at the equations and some of the physical understandings of how we fly in space that actually have 100% application to this new activity we're heading off to.
In the green shirt.
Hi, Dave Mosher with Wired.com. So you guys have a mission in space now, and this is for anybody who can best answer it. What is going to be a really key moment up there, aside from getting the astronauts safely on the ground? What's going to be sort of tensest moment, the main objective that you want to get done before you come home?
Well, I think first of all, there's a lot of just logistics activity, and that's just moving cargo from the multi-purpose logistics module into the space station. This is the heaviest MPLM multi-purpose logistics module we've flown, so it is really packed full. So there's going to be just a big kind of logistics activity of moving that activity from the module. Then also space station is getting pretty crowded. There's a lot of things up there that are stored that need to come back. This is a unique time to bring unique components back, so you'll see us fill the MPLM up. That's why we really would like to have the extra day on orbit. We also have a pump module that's failed on the outside of space station. It failed a little bit earlier than our analysis has shown. We would like to return that pump module to understand why it failed so we can improve the next generation. And then we have another experiment that's going up. It's a refueling experiment that will sit on the outside of station, and this fall we'll be able to use the Canadian dexterous robot to actually service to do a mock demonstration of servicing a satellite that was never meant to be serviced. So it has on the outside of it an interface that looks just like a satellite that's in geosynchronous orbit. We've designed unique tools for it, very much like we designed unique tools for the Hubble servicing mission, but now this robot will use these unique tools. It will cut the blanket away, it will remove a panel, it will remove lock wire, remove a cap, and then actually demonstrate fluid transfer between two tanks on board. So it's going to take us now from the spacewalk generation to start showing us what we can do in terms of robotic activities on board space station.
Okay, back on the other side of the room.
Yes, hi, Matt Pavlidich from the Radio Network New Zealand. Thank you, gentlemen, for today. I think it'll be with us the rest of our lives. The initial ascent of Atlantis did look, to me anyway, slightly slow, like she was strutting perhaps. A question and a follow-up for Bob Cabana. Pad 39A, as has been mentioned, is in the past, the present and the future going to be a working launch pad, but are there any plans to have any significant extra commemoration plaques, what have you, for that pad in the coming future? And also, when Atlantis returns home, are there any special ceremonies that you have up your sleeve that you perhaps cannot tell us about yet?
Well, actually, I'm working with the Shuttle program to come up with some commemorative plaques to put in some various places, both at the Shuttle landing facility and at the launch pad. So we'll have something to commemorate the history of those pads as well as the landings at the SLF. And we've got a couple of ceremonies coming up after landing, something special for the KSC team right here participating in the landing, post-landing. But we're going to have a big celebration, and I can't remember the date right now, but it's going to be out at our visitor center, and it's going to celebrate the entire shuttle program. And it's going to be open to easy access to all the retirees, the folks that have been a key part of this program for the last 30 years, so we can really celebrate the significance of what Shuttle has accomplished. And that's going to be on the 13th of August.
Andy Cox with the Weather Channel. It seemed today like the weather gods kind of conspired to let both the teams kind of show their mettle. You guys talked about the SMG working the RTLS stuff and 45th working the range stuff here. I wonder if you guys could maybe speak to the bigger picture of what the weather teams have meant just throughout the course of the program, the support they've given.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'll let Mike add in too, because he works with Kathy a lot in the 45th, and we're only singling out Kathy because she's the spokesman for that team usually. But the SMG guys, we're talking about the future and looking ahead. It's amazing when you work down here how much we need the daily weather forecasts for every operation we do. We're outside at the pad. We're moving hardware back and forth. There's cargo coming in at the SLF. We need weather forecasting on a daily basis. And in fact, Mike has a daily weather call where we tag up and see what's coming. And so it's played an integral part of the Space Shuttle program and the space program. And it's really built up an unbelievable capability. I was just explaining to a few folks the other day, not too long ago, we had flight rules in place that talked about triggered lightning. We learned that lesson the hard way through some of our partners over on the Air Force side, where they had an event with a triggered lightning that took out an Atlas, and a bunch of new rules came in place to talk about what the limits are. And we have field mills on the ground that measure voltages from lightning and kind of help tell you whether you're going to get triggered lightning or an impending lightning strike. But we didn't know what was really happening at altitude. And so combination with the Weather Service, the Air Force, NASA, and NOAA, we flew a project to basically fly airborne field mills. We used to have a rule that any attached cumulus cloud, if it had lightning in it, if it was attached, you'd be no-go. So we could have a cloud deck that stretched over the Gulf of Mexico with lightning out near the middle of Mexico, and we'd be no-go here for that. And we learned through these rules that it's probably about, and I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it's a 20 to 30 mile type of radius effect. And so advancing the state of the art there really, really paid off. And I think we got that because we had a dedicated team focused on dedicated weather in certain areas of the country. You learn so much when you look at weather in one spot that closely. And so I really hope that seeded itself throughout the rest of the country in weather forecasting and weather service too, not just for the shuttle program. But it's an unbelievable team. We could not do what we do without them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I do have a daily weather call with Kathy Winters, the launch weather officer. And as Mike says, she's just a spokesman for a large group of people over the 45th. Different things come into play on daily processing versus launch. Different things come into play when we're talking about tropical systems. We work very closely with the National Hurricane Center when we have a tropical system threatening us. We've had criteria to roll the shuttle off the launch pad to get back into the VAB to protect it. And we've done that in the past. Weather here in Central Florida, the lightning capital of the world, right? There's a group of people, the lightning launch commit criteria group. It's a group of PhDs, been together for over 25 years. And through those years and the studies they've done, like the airborne field mill that Mike mentioned, we've been able to relax our rules, but yet stay perfectly safe. And so we're constantly challenging the weather folks because we have an operation to perform, but we need to do it safely. And so it's a balance between between those two competing interests. Weather in Central Florida is a very, very interesting phenomenon, and you saw it today. It could have easily turned very, very sour, and we wouldn't be talking to you right now. So a little bit of luck never hurts. But the relationship we have with the 45th and SMG and the other folks that support them is just outstanding.
All right, we have time for unfortunately only 3 more questions, so we'll take one here, then Todd Halverson and Ralph Vardabadian from the LA Times.
Thank you. Jackie Goddard for the Times of London. Over the last couple of years, and right up to last week really, we've seen certain harsh criticism spelled out by some pretty heavyweight NASA veterans, Neil Armstrong, Chris Kraft, Gene Kranz, Gene Cernan, the letter last week to Charlie Bolden. How, if NASA can't convince some of its own finest, how do you think NASA will move forward to convince the public that NASA is still an agency that knows where it's going, what it's doing, and that it's worth doing?
Well, I'll start, and I'm going to let the head of human spaceflight at NASA add a little bit more to it. But I think as it becomes clearer and we announce the specific design of the rocket that we are building and how we are going to use it and why we chose that design, I think that's going to help tremendously in educating and helping folks understand what we're doing and why we're doing it.
And I think also there's a piece of it that, we've got a lot of detailed plans that we've been working, in-house quietly with technical teams, really building a pretty strong strategy of how we go forward. And they captured a vision of NASA that was in the past with a different set of teams, and they haven't had the privilege of being brought in and understanding all the details that the technical experts are working on a day-to-day basis. So we'll reach out to them and make sure that we get the briefings to them and they can understand what we're doing. We'll listen to their opinions. We'll see what makes sense, see if we missed something. I think when I grew up under those folks you mentioned, those are my teachers. Those are my mentors. I lived in Houston with them. I consider all of them truly my mentors. So I think I've incorporated everything that they bring to us in terms of concerns. But I think we owe them to show them technically what we've done and how we're prepared to go address these issues that they raise. And I think after they see that, I think they'll come to an understanding of where we're heading. They may not particularly like it because they want to push in a further direction. They know what this team is capable of. They see what we can go do, and they want us to do even more. So they are pushing us as hard as they can on the outside. So a piece of that is healthy, too, to have a good, strong debate that we can keep pushing and keep trying to do more. And we are, this team is really ready to execute whatever this nation wants this team to go do. This team can go execute.
Todd Halverson.
Todd Halverson of Florida Today for Bill or maybe Mike Moses. With the end of the shuttle program and maybe more specifically the end of ISS assembly, I'm wondering if either of you see this as an end of a golden era in spacewalking.
I don't see it really as an end. I see it really as it's a transition, right? And unfortunately, sometimes we can't do, we say we can multitask, right, as a people, but sometimes we can't multitask as well as we think we can. You feel like you're multitasking, but are you really as efficient as you were? Or are you just doing 3 things that actually take you longer than if you would have done those 3 things individually, right? So in a way, we had to really quit assembly to really get focused on this research pace and to get this activity started. And we've got a nice window. We've got a nice 9-year window where we can really concentrate on this space research. And then that shows that there's potentially an economic market. There's now potentially a commercial application for space that's not government driven. So then there's a unique window here where now it's not only individual governments pushing us into space, but now there's a real commercial pull towards space. And that can really springboard us and move us in big directions. So I don't see this necessarily as an end, but I see this as a transition into another era. And at the same time we're going to be doing the ISS research, we're going to be building the heavy lift launch vehicle, the capsule we talked about, the Orion MPCV, that's going to allow us to get beyond low Earth orbit to go push those boundaries to really challenge us as a human race to go out and explore with humans to new destinations. So I don't see this as an end of the golden era. I see this as a chance we can leverage off of what we've got now and really push it in new directions. And it's up to us to make sure we explain as best we can to the broader community, the non-space folks, why we are doing what we are doing. Why have we dedicated our lives to this? Why are we doing all the activities we have done? We need to convey to them that excitement in this small window so they can get excited with us and then move with us into this next phase of spaceflight.
Ralph.
Thank you. Ralph Artabady in LA Times. The last question is, a lot of federal agencies have gone through ends of eras of very technically sophisticated programs and have worried about the loss and atrophy of the know-how and knowledge that extended back decades. And I was just wondering, and they've gone through processes of formally documenting that technology and knowledge. And I'm just wondering now at the end of the shuttle era whether you're concerned about preserving and being able to tap all of the knowledge, the manufacturing art, the operational knowledge that you bring to this table, and how you're doing it and whether you're concerned about it. Thank you.
We have a pretty extensive lessons learned program where we try to document exactly what we've done. We do it through video archives. We have a database that's searchable. We have all kinds of multimedia activities to try to capture the knowledge. But then I think another really effective way to transfer that knowledge is to move some of the people from one activity or one program to that next program so they can take the actual lessons that they have learned and applied themselves, and they get to then go apply it to the new program. If you look at our history, a lot of the ISS team came from the shuttle program. So they got to take all those hard lessons they learned in the shuttle program that are really internal lessons now that you're not going to read in a book or you don't have to search in a database, and they can actually apply them in the next application. So as we do the new designs of these launch pads, we do the new designs of the new launch vehicles, we're going to try to capture and move people that have experience in the shuttle world into those areas so they can directly apply the knowledge and the skills that they've learned in the shuttle program to the new activities going forward.
So you're not really concerned that you're going to have any atrophy or loss of knowledge?
I think I'm concerned. I mean, we need to watch out for that, right? But what I've described to you is the way we're going to try to prevent that. So I think it's naive to say we've got it well in hand, because this is a very difficult thing to do, to how you capture this knowledge and how you pass it on. We are trying our best with all the right experts and all these techniques I described to make sure we go do it. Time will tell how well we've done it, but I think it's critical for us to try to make that move and make sure we capture it. But it will not be easy for us to do.
Okay.
Can we see Mike's sash one more time?
They would like to see Mike's Atlantis sash one more time. And while, Mike, you're displaying that, I just wanted to let everyone know we're going to close today by replaying another launch of Atlantis on television for you. We also will be replaying a very special farewell tribute video from the closeout crew before they broke down the White Room for the last time. Then we'll turn things back to Mission Control in Houston for STS-135 continuous coverage. You can keep up with the entire mission at www.nasa.gov/shuttle. Now we'll roll video. Thank you very much.
Well done. Good answers.
8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger, roll, Atlantis. Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis. The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history. 24 seconds in.